Hello, everybody. I'm Katrina Walker, and welcome to my studio here in Spokane, Washington. I know you're watching from all over the place, so it's kind of fun to see. Sometimes I even have friends and neighbors that pop in. So hello to all of you wherever you are. And today's topic is going to be a fast, festive holiday pillow. So luckily for you, I have already written up instructions for this. In fact, it actually almost takes longer to explain it than it does to do. My buddy Max has popped up that QR code up on your screen. So you can go ahead and get that those instructions downloaded at your convenience so that you can go ahead and make this up. It's super, super easy. And pillows really are just a great, great project to make. Maybe it's you just received, we're going live here, and next week is the Christmas holiday. Of course, it's the holiday season, a lot of different holidays going on, depending on, what your culture is and where you are in the world. But it's a gift giving season. So a pillow is a great last minute gift. Or maybe you were given a sewing machine for one of these holidays and you want to try it out and not sure what to make for your first project. Well, I highly recommend pillows because, as you'll see, they're super, super easy. Okay, so one thing you'll need to do is you'll have to figure out what size your pillow is going to be. So there's a couple ways to do this. One is, oops, I just caught myself on that camera cord. So one is to just, if you have a pillow form, you can buy pre-made pillow forms. These are already stuffed, and they usually have a zipper in them somewhere. And that means that if you need to add more stuffing over time, you can. That's really nice. But these are available at most craft stores and things. But like in my case, so sometimes you can just go ahead and if you know what size your pillow form is, you make a pillow covering to match that. But now in my case, I actually had some pieces left over from a holiday quilt that I embroidered. So this is all done with machine embroidery in the hoop, and then you piece the blocks together. So I had these 4 blocks left over from doing this holiday quilt. And so, of course, that was perfect. I kind of did that on purpose so that I would have a pillow to go with the quilt. So in that case, I knew that this set of 4 blocks, once they were cut out, would be 16 inches. 16 inches, that is from edge to edge with the seam allowance. Now, one thing you need to understand is that when you make a pillow to fit a pillow form or buy a pillow form to fit a piece of fabric, so I'm kind of doing it backwards. I actually had a pre-existing piece of fabric I needed to match my pillow size to. So this particular piece of fabric, now this does have a seam allowance on it where the stitching line is, but at any rate, it equals 16 inches. So you want to buy, in this case, a 16-inch pillow form. All right, and you may be thinking, well, wouldn't you need it to be more than 16 inches because you have the seam allowances, you need to add seam allowances and all of that. No, you actually want to cut your fabric or buy your pillow form to the exact same measurements so that your pillow cover will actually be slightly smaller when all of a sudden, once you've sewn it up, it'll be smaller, because that's how you get a nice, tight, fluffy pillow. Because of course we want this to look custom made, not homemade, right? That's the key. I'm just gonna keep my eye on the chat here, make sure that I'm not missing anyone's questions here. But anyhow, so this is a really key thing to understand about making pillows, is that you want the size of your pillow, the stuffing part, the pillow insert, and you want your pillow outside before it's sewn. You want them to be the same size so that when you sew it, it's actually going to be slightly smaller, and that gives you a nice poofy pillow. Some people will actually go in, and when they put the pillow insert in, they'll actually put a little extra stuffing in the corners to make it a little bit even tighter. Because that's kind of a difference, again, between a professional looking pillow and one that just looks kind of homemade. But again, I promised you fast and festive, and so you'll get to see just how easy this is. So here I have that set of 4 blocks, And on this stitching line, so when I sew this pillow, I'm going to be stitching on top of this previous stitching line. I know this white, a little difficult to see, but that's where I'm actually going to be stitching. I'll be stitching from the wrong side, but I can see the previous stitching line. That's my stitching line. Now, you also want to cut 2 backing pieces. So that's the front of my pillow. That's my pillow top. Now, this is a fast and festive pillow. This is not like the most fancy, elaborate pillow you'll ever make. This is quick and easy. And it's just a great way to dress up your home for any occasion. Doesn't have to be the holidays, could be any occasion, because you can make a whole bunch of these really fast. So at any rate, so you want to cut this to the same size as your pillow front, and you want 2 of these for the back, because we're going to make what they call an envelope style pillow. This is kind of also like if you've ever used pillow shams on a bed, this is pretty much how they're made. So on this white fabric, it's hard to tell, but this is the right side, and I actually put some fusible interfacing on the wrong side, just some real cheap fusible interfacing, because it'll give it a little bit more structure, a little bit heavier weight to it. This is a lightweight poly dupioni, so I wanted it to be less see-through for one thing, and I wanted it to have more structure. So for this pillow, the pillow back, you can just about fit it on the screen. So you want to take one side of this and you want to fold it over about 1/3 from the right side toward the wrong side. Again, I realize this is white. I think I can hold it at an angle. It's a little more obvious. But we want to take it, we want to fold it from the right side toward the wrong side, about 1/3. Now this pillow square was 16 inches. This gauge is set at 5 inches, so it's a little bit more than 5 inches here. So that's about perfect. And I just eyeballed this. Let's be perfectly honest. I eyeballed this. I took this to my ironing board. I took it to the ironing board. I basically, folded it in half. I folded it in half and then I backed it off until it looked like the fold and the part that was sticking out from the fold was about the same size. Okay, so I just eyeballed this. Don't worry about it being precise. And if you're a little short on fabric, you can cut these back squares a little bit smaller than your fronts and just make the overlap narrower. But you do want this overlap to be wide enough to give a very nice overlap so that it holds its shape well. You never see any pillow, poking out from the back. That would be kind of tacky, right? We don't want that. So you're going to do that. So for each back piece of your pillow, you're going to, pardon me, you're going to fold it about 1/3. One more time. There we go. Fold it about 1/3 toward the back and just press it. Just press a fold in here. Now, if you're going to do a really fancy pillow, you could go ahead and put buttonholes in here. You could divide it up and put in some buttonholes and then make this a button back pillow. There's a lot of things you can do to it, but we're just going to do fast and festive today. But you're going to do this to both back pieces. So these are just squares. Both back pieces you're going to fold over 1/3 from the right side toward the wrong side, like a hem, basically. But this is going to be an overlap. So when we grab our pillow, and I don't really care what orientation this is. If you have an obvious top and bottom to your pillow front, you'll want to bear that in mind when you line this all up so that it looks good. So the pillow overlaps are running perpendicular, basically to the orientation. So the not horizontal, but actually vertical, maybe it's a better word to use. So we're going to place our pillow backs over the pillow fronts, just lining up the raw edges. Now, I have to confess that on this particular, when I fused my fusible interfacing on, it actually shrunk. It shrunk my pillow back pieces. So if you'll notice that I'm not lining up on this direction, I'm not lining up my fabric perfectly. It's because that shrunk. And so I have to make sure that I'm actually gonna reach all the way across. If I'd had more time, unfortunately, I didn't actually fuse the interfacing to it until this morning. If I had been paying closer attention and caught it sooner, I would have been able to cut more pieces. I do have fabric, but you know what? Sometimes these things happen and you just make the best of it. So I'm just gonna make sure that my my stitching line is covered in fabric. And when all is said and done and this pillow is put together, no one will ever see it. So you all know because you all watched it on camera, but it will look just fine sitting on my couch. So life is good. Stress over the big stuff, right? Not the small stuff. So the good news is over here on the edges, it'll be fine. But in case you're wondering why I'm scooching it down, that's why. There's a reason. Reason for everything, right? But you'll want to pin this. Now, I should also mention that if you have a new serger, whoops, I pulled that one up a little tight farther than I wanted to. If you have a serger and you want to get your serger out and get it started and learn how to use it, you can do this on a serger too. So it can be sewn or serged, this project. I'm going to use a sewing machine, so I'm using regular pins. If I was doing this on a serger, I would use Wonder Clips to clip it because Wonder Clips, I can't cut those off with my serger. It'll smack into the machine, which is a nice little safety feature. Now, another thing I can do, since I know that I'm coming up a little bit short, is I can actually just pull this fabric over to the edge. If this is slightly shorter than my top, that's completely okay because it'll actually make sure that the front, the decorative part of my pillow, make sure it rolls over toward the back. So that's not entirely a terrible thing. So anyway, I'm just gonna put a few more pins in, which I know is really boring to watch, but just bear with me. But the point is, don't panic. You know, if it's not perfect, there's usually a way to kind of work with things and it'll turn out just fine. No big deal. Okay, so that's one piece. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna scooch it a bit. It will not be obvious that I had to cheat a little bit on the finished pillow. But it was a nasty little surprise when I went to compare the sizes and went, oh, now it's smaller. Sewing is just full of surprises. So, okay, so we've done one side. So again, this is right sides together. So you should be seeing that overlap fold where you're pinning it all together, right? So here's my overlap fold. So now I need to do the other half. And hello, Jenny from Ontario. Always fun to see our Canadian friends. Since I live up near Canada, you're pretty much our neighbors. Well, I'm not quite at the 49th parallel. I'm just down a couple degrees, but still pretty close to the border here in Spokane. So just as before, we're going to just make sure that we've pinned. Mostly want to just make sure, especially to make sure these intersections all line up. Now, oftentimes you'll see there's going to be the overlaps. You'll see one poking out from the other just a little bit. I put that in your instructions. Hopefully that illustration will make sense now. But I just want to make sure these don't flip up and do something odd while I'm stitching. Of course, this is a white pillow, so I'm also trying not to poke myself because it seems like anytime you have a white project, you want to just bleed all over it. Poke yourself with a pin. And if that happens, this is really disgusting, but if that happens, the trick is to actually put some saliva on it. Your saliva has the enzymes to dissolve your blood. So I know it's really disgusting, but there's your fix. I mean, you could use Sometimes you can use peroxide and things, but I always kind of hold my breath a little bit when I'm working on white projects because the tendency is just always to poke myself. So again, I just mostly want to make sure that these flaps on the overlap, that they're secured, that my corners get secured. Now, another thing you can do, if you're making these and you want to take a little more time and be even more fancy, is you can round off these corners. If you don't like sewing corners, you can round these off. You can round those off. You also can add trims to the inside. You would put that trim, sandwich it in between the front layer and the back layers. And thank you, Ricky. I'll try not to stab myself, but you know, these small thin pins really do the trick. But anyhow, you can take a fringe or a ruffle or anything like that, and you can also sandwich it in between the layers when you sew your blue. So there's a lot of things you can do to dress this up. I already mentioned you can put buttons and buttonholes on your overlaps before you sew it together. There's lots of things you can do. So, but we're just going to do quick and dirty today. Or not dirty, but you get the point. Fast and festive. There we go. Fast and festive. Okay. So we're all pinned up. You see my pins sticking out from the back here. And now we really just have to sew all the way around this thing because we already have our opening here with this overlap. So we don't have to worry about sewing it shut. We can just sew all the way around it and we're done. So that's how fast and easy this is. So again, looking at, I'm going to smooth this out a little bit. I might have to do some little creative easing while I stitch, but I'm going to be sewing from this side so I can see that previous stitching line as I sew. And you can see there's places where like this isn't lying down quite perfectly, so I think I'm going to squish it a little bit. I could actually take that pin out too in the middle and kind of split the difference and smush it down a little bit, make it a little easier to ease in. But some of these things you can kind of ease in. And what I mean by easing in is I literally can smush some of this fabric into my sewing machine as I go in a way that's not obvious, and it'll all work out in the end. Another thing I recommend if you want perfect corners. Now in this case, I'm cheating because I have a stitching line here. I have a stitching line here where I can see where I'm stitching. But if you are doing this and you want to have perfect corners, one thing I do recommend is I'm just grabbing a pen here real quick. Forgot to grab my pens. But I will often take a ruler, and a lot of times I'll use like a 1/2 inch stitching line, but I'll actually draw in all of my corners. I draw all my corners, and that way they're always perfect because I can see exactly where I'm going to turn, and I can make a much nicer angle that way. So anytime I'm doing pockets, pillows, anything with a 90-degree angle or some kind of angle, or even a curve, I always trace my stitching line, and that ensures accuracy. Okay, so let's take it to the machine. And I'm just going to do myself a favor and start somewhere where it's looking relatively smooth. And I'm going to start down from my, oops, wiki. My sewing machine isn't awake yet. There it goes. Okay. So I'm just using a standard stitch length. So nothing in particular, just a standard 2.5 stitch length, regular thread. I'm going to back stitch a little bit there. And again, for me, now I do usually pull my pins. You might see me accidentally sew over once or twice. I don't mean to, but that is one reason I use these really fine pins. If I do hit it with my needle, it's less likely to break my needle. So, oh, we have people coming. We have people from my friend from Walla Walla who's south of me, and we have people from the other side of the country chiming in. So welcome to everybody. It's lovely to see you. But just if you see me accidentally sew over a pin, I didn't mean to. It just happens. Now here I've got a place where my seam allowance kind of got turned to the side. Now I did go ahead and as you can see, I went ahead and serged my seam allowances. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that. You could use pinking shears. If you don't have a serger, it's not the end of the world. You could use pinking shears. There's different things you can do to finish that seam allowance. It's all okay. Many of us sewed for years before we could afford our own serger, so. It's okay. But again, if you do have a serger, you could completely, oops, so I just overshot just a tiny bit. Oops. I'm gonna drop that needle in that corner. But you could actually be serging this as well. It doesn't have to be done on a sewing machine. I wouldn't use pins. Like I said, I would use Wonder Clips if you're gonna use a serger, because pins are just too easy to run over with a serger. Let's just get this. So here I have one of these edges that's a little bit where I'm gonna have to kind of smush fabric into my machine as I sew. So this is a way to ease it. Now, it would be easier if I stitch from the other side. I could use my feed dogs to actually ease this little bit of extra in, but I need to be able to see my stitching line. So I'm having to kind of do it manually. I could also take it over to my ironing board and try steaming it, because like I said, what happened was when I fused on my interfacing, it shrunk my fabric. So we're just going to make it work. You will behave. You will cooperate. Let's see. Sorry, my spool of thread is not cooperating, so I'm gonna give it a little hand there. Okay, so again, just kind of stuffing that under my foot as I go. See, since it didn't work out, you're learning a little extra sewing tip. It's all good. It's just a pillow. It's not an Oscar, red carpet gown here where it's all good. See, if I have to even, I can just lift up my foot a little bit, shove a little more fabric in, and there we go. Okay, put the needle down. One thing I have not done, and I meant to do, is oftentimes when I do a corner like this, I'll actually shorten my stitch length, or I can even backstitch a little bit, and that will tend to make a stronger corner. So if I need to clip the corners to make them look nicer, they won't be as likely to have issues or fail on me and have raw edges sticking out or something. So bear that in mind also. I'll demonstrate it on the next corner now that I'm thinking about it. I was thinking about making sure that I ease in this extra fabric on those ends that need it. But again, the key here is to remember to cut your pillow fronts and the two back pieces to be the same size, not larger. Don't add a seam allowance. You want them the same size as your pillow form. I'm just remembering I turned the speed down on my machine. There we go. Okay, so again, when I get to the corner, ideally you want to go ahead and I'm shortening my stitch length down to 0.5. So you can take little tiny stitches. That will help you stitch it accurately, and it will also make your corners stronger. So I apologize for not demonstrating that earlier, but that's always a good strategy. And again, you don't have to have square corners. You can round these off. You can round these corners off before you stitch it. It's not a problem. So again, I'm going to raise my foot. I'm going to smush a little fabric under there. We're just going to ease this little bubble in. And the reason I have for those who are coming in late, I have some little bubbles here because when I fused the interfacing to my pillow backs, it shrunk the fabric. And so I want to make sure that my pillow backs actually come all the way across. So I'm having to cheat a little bit and ease in some extra fabric. But it's okay. It will all come out in the end. It's one thing you should understand about, we sewing professionals, we make mistakes. We make bigger mistakes faster than you. I think that's why we're professionals. It's not that we don't have things go wrong. We just have more experience fixing them usually. So don't ever think that you're not good at sewing just because you make some mistakes, because that's just part of the game, folks, part of the game. Fabric is always unique and it's going to do funny things. So just keep it up. That's what I'm saying. Keep it up. Keep up the good work, everybody. All right, we're going to shorten that stitch length again. So we're here at the corner. Okay, pivot, turn that corner. If you're new to sewing, a way to turn a corner is just to put your needle down, raise your foot, and then you can just pivot. Isn't that slick? Okay, so I've reinforced my corner there with some short stitches. So oftentimes people ask me about stitch length, and the truth is that my stitch length is I usually stick with just kind of the standard stitch length, 2.5. But there are times when there's reasons to adjust it. If I'm just sewing a temporary seam, I'm going to make it really long so it's easier for me to pick out, for example. And if I need something to be stronger, like around a corner, then I'm going to shorten my stitch length. Okay, let's shorten up a few stitches here. Again, when I shorten my stitch length, I'm going down to clear down to like 0.5, like pretty darn short. I think we're about to our overlap here. Seems to be sewn, yep. So we're just about done. I don't mind stitching over things a little bit, just to make sure that everything's good and sturdy. Okay, let's just go ahead and call that good. So we have our pillow top. It's been sewn to our backs. Woohoo! You just want to go all the way around. That's what makes this so fast, is that once you overlap all your pieces, you just sew around the outside and you're off to the races. So you can do, so if you're serging, you're done. If you have a regular sewing machine and you want these corners to be a little bit more pointy, you can go ahead and I'm actually going to put this on hang on, I'm going to put this on a closer overhead. Here we go. All right, so here's my corner. Excuse my fingernails. You can actually go ahead and clip those at an angle. That will give you a little bit, potentially a sharper corner, but this is why, again, we reinforced those stitches to those little tiny stitches. Was so that if we clip our corners, notice I'm not clipping right to the stitches. I mean, it's close, but if we clip our corners, it just gives it a little bit more to hang on to there. Looks like I was pretty close to the edge of the fabric in that spot, but I think we made it. So you do want to like double check that everything's okay before you clip corners, but I'm doing this for public consumption, so we're just going to work with the assumption that it's okay and cross our fingers that it really is. So here's my overlap. Maybe this is better on the big screen. Okay, so here's my overlap, and now I just have to turn my pillow covering right side out. Now I am sticking my finger into the corners here. I stick my finger into the corner. I'll put this into the corner and kind of pinch it when I turn it. And that helps me to just get a nicer corner from the get-go. We actually have tools for this. We do have point turners and things. I'm just cheating and using my fingers because it's a pillow. It's not I'm not going to worry too much if the points are absolutely perfect. You can also take this to your iron and you can press these seam allowances open and give these corners a press. If you have a tailor board, you can press these corners to make them really sharp, and that also makes them very, very pointy. But oftentimes we don't expect that from our pillows much. And you can take a blunt tool and push these out when all is said and done. Okay, let's just get this turned. Alrighty, so there's the back. So again, you want to have that a nice deep overlap so that no matter how much this might bulge, it's never going to show. So if I kind of pull it open, you want it to be wide enough that no matter how overstuffed this is, it doesn't show the pillow form. Okay, so that's the key. You want a nice deep overlap. And so a deep overlap. There's my front. Okay, so then we just have to we're just going to take our pillow form and we're just going to stuff it in there. So just like, again, if you've ever used pillow shams on a bed, it's the same kind of thing. And you just want to make sure you get that the pillow corners up into your corners. Just wiggle it around in there, get it up in those corners. And again, what some interior decorators will do is they'll actually take a little extra stuffing and they'll actually put stuffing inside the corners themselves to get them to be fuller. So there's things you can do. There's little tricks to making it look even more professional. But the key really is to making sure that your sewn pillow cover is actually slightly smaller than the size of the pillow form. So again, just make sure that this overlap, make sure that it's laying nicely inside. Mine got kind of bunched up with me shoving my hand inside it. But just reach inside and just smooth it out. Make sure everything's laying nice and flat. See, all the fussing with the pillow takes almost longer than sewing it together. So there you go. If you have nice press, then you should have a nice pillow back, a nice overlap. And there is our finished pillow. Woohoo! So yay. So that's how easy it is. You can make a whole stack of these really fast. And when you have that easy open, just that simple envelope style overlap, again, you could choose to put buttons and buttonholes in this. There's a lot of things you can do to dress this up. It doesn't have to be this simple, but we're going for fast and festive here. But it's very easy. When your pillow is easy to switch out, it's nice because you can really change up your decor for every season. Like if you're really into decorating for the holidays, you can do pillows for your couch, a set in everything. And all you're having to store, you can just take the pillow forms out and you only have to store the covers, which doesn't take up much space. So it's just a really easy way to make a gift or to go ahead and just dress up your domain. So again, I know Max off and on has had the QR code on the screen for getting the instructions. They're very, very basic instructions. I think it's maybe 2 pages at most, and that's with illustrations. So be sure to get those for yourself or to share with a friend. And there we go. It's up on the screen again. And I just wish you all just a very happy holiday season. And I guess I'll see you again in the new year. So I don't see any questions, so I'm assuming we're good there. But just happy holidays, everyone. May you have a lot of joy this year and into the coming year.